Super. I'm the Director of Production and Event Development for the Recording Academy.
Hi everybody, I'm Clay Upton.
Hi everyone, my name is Adrian Diaz, and I work with these guys in the production
Usually
department.
it'll start out with a budget. Once we have a conception, we conceptualize what we want to do, how we want to do it. The next step is how we're going to pay for it. Is it going to come out of our funds that are sitting around? Do we have to find a sponsor for it? That's really the first step for us. At that point, we'll all sit down, we'll brainstorm, we'll figure out how we want to do it, where we want to do it. Oh God, it's 7:30.
Go on.
What it's going to take to get accomplished. So we build timelines. We figure out what partners we want to bring in. Are we going to be able to do this all in-house? Do we need to go outside and bring in some resources? Go out, get a venue, figure out what'll work. How are we going to fill the audience? Is there an audience for this event? Are we going to sell tickets? Is it a public event? Is it a private event? There's many different events we do. We do, the Grammy telecast, which tickets are astronomical for prices for. But there's other events we do, which are just programs we want to do because it's part of our mission, which is to bring music to the masses. So we'll do an event where we'll honor a legend in the music industry and invite the public in to come see it and enjoy it. Anything to add to that?
Obviously, the size and scope of anything you plan to do is limited by how much money you can throw at it. Not only will it determine the size of the venue that you can book, it will determine the quality and caliber of the talent you can go after. It will determine the size and scope of your production. When you see the Grammy telecast, you're looking at millions of dollars thrown at sound, at lighting, at stage pieces, at hair and makeup, at things that explode and catch fire and things like that. And then there are other things, which is basically just a stage that's lit up and some people making some music. It doesn't necessarily take a 9-figure budget in order to make an event happen that has some sort of meaning, but it does take a certain amount of money, and then you essentially have to reverse engineer your event based on how much money you're allowed to throw at it.
Usually we operate on a fiscal year timeline where we know what the year in front of us is going to be, but in where we're at now with the organization, the economy, a lot of it is sponsor driven. So a lot of things are weeks and months out where we have to react and go. So it really depends on the project and when we know about it and how much time is allotted for. There's annual events like the Grammy telecast where we know we have a year. Our timelines, vendor hiring, venue selection, what am I missing here?
Invitation print.
Invitations.
You need to bring in extra help.
Yeah, whether you have to bring in more resources internally to help you or if you're going to outsource everything to a third party.
Some things are simple. If you know you're going to mail an invitation and people need 4 to 6 weeks to stare at that invitation before they get it through their head, they need to respond. You have a sales term you need to have, and sometimes your sponsor needs a sales term. If you're partnering with a retail outlet or a credit card company, they're going to need time to reach out to their constituents, and they move slower than molasses, so their lead time is definitely longer. So you can simplify and plan backwards on those. Pick your event date and start planning your way backwards to the major milestones, which would be times you need to mail things, times you need to open up and release tickets, or say that you're sold out, or carve up the house if you realize that you have a 5,000 seat venue and only 2,000 people are going to show up. You have to start making your milestone and contingency plans for that. You have to talk about budget milestones so that you can look during your sales period to know if you're selling and you're on track, or whether you need to make some sort of adjustment, because if you're not going to bring in as much money, then obviously you can't spend as much money, so you have to start looking at ways to adjust your production budget accordingly.
What happens when the timeline completely gets screwed up? Like, I think it was the BET Awards, Michael Jackson died, like, I think it was a few days or a week before they happened, so they had to change it like really fast. Have you guys been through that? Have you guys had to do that? Like,
we've been through it. I mean, the best way to sum it up is it's panic is the first thing that everybody says, so what do we know what to do? And then somebody will step up and say, let's try this approach. Let's figure out, what do we have to fill? How much time? Who's available? How are we going to do it? Is it going to be a talking head? Is it going to be a musical act? If it's a musical act, who's here? Do they have their instruments with them? Where are we going to rehearse them at? Are they ready to go? How are we going to fit it in? How's it going to work in the flow-wise of the show? Do we have to move anything else in the show around to accommodate that? We pride ourselves on, once we get into that week of our show, it's all about execution. We try not to change any plans at all. We don't want to change talent lineups. We don't want to change any of our processes. We don't want to change our secure perimeter. We don't want to change ticket levels. We don't want to change anything. We just want to be able to go on site and make sure that everything's right so we can react to anything from a third party that comes our way from talent or from our partners in their emergencies. We don't want to create our own emergencies. Something like that, though, that's an emergency that you kind of bring on yourself. Once that happens and you decide this is what we're going to do with our show, we try to stay away from that as much as possible.
The first thing to know is that 80% of artistic temperament problems are not artists. They're management. You very rarely will actually have to deal directly with an artist, and when you do, they're usually space cadets. If you think about the life of an artist, they are constantly being led around by other people, told to stand here, smile here, sing into that, walk out there, be here at this time, say this, read that. So most of what you run into is problems in the advance with management, and demands range from reasonable to absurd to insulting.
How far in advance does the voting take place?
There's 2 rounds of voting. So pretty much the first round is everyone who submits for the year, that's qualified within a certain time span. So if you produce an album or a song within a certain amount of time, then it could be considered for nomination. They send out that ballot, which consists of, when they used to print it out on paper, it was about the size of a phone book. Just pretty much with everyone who's wants to be considered within a certain category. Now there's screenings to make sure that they are in the correct category. But after that first round, that's how they determine and narrow it down to the top 5. And there's more, screenings, more committees to determine, if these are the correct 5. There wasn't like a block voting. Our membership consists of about 20,000 people, which about 10,000 of those are voting members or so. The other half are affiliates, just like lawyers or people within the industry, students. But that first ballot goes out about, I want to say, October?
Yeah, end of September, either 1st of October. That's when the first ballot.
And then there's a due date that will be returned back to our auditing company. They then tally the votes, and then we announce our nominees, our official 5 top nominees, around the beginning of
What's the
December.
criteria that the voters are voting on in terms of having that artist be a nominee for whatever award?
Well, they now offer a listening function, whereas before it used to be like just name recognition. When you're going through the first round of voting, you're overwhelmed, and just you start to understand why the same people get voted on year after year. When you're getting towards the middle, it's like, okay, I know you two, I know Lady Gaga. Well, now with the listening function, people people have their own professional field. I'm an engineer, so I know what a good engineered album sounds like.
Right.
But
There are 2 kinds of categories, or at least how I separate them. There's sort of qualitative and opinionated. The qualitative is like an engineering category. There are a lot of different technical categories where people listen, and based on their professional experience, they say, that's the best engineered classical album. Some people look at the top album of the year, song of the year, and say, from an industry perspective, in my professional opinion, that's my favorite. So it is essentially pick your favorite, but the whole goal is that at least we're trying to get the opinion, we're trying to gauge the pulse of the industry.
When it's all said and done, what criteria do you use to judge an event's success? This hit the mark, or this didn't. What's your metrics?
well, I'll start off. For me, it's just how much ticketing revenue I've made. It's as easy as that.
I have 2 different sets of metrics that I look at when I sort of make my assessment of an event I've done. One is a logistics assessment, and that is to see if the plans that I laid in place were executed properly, or whether something, and in this world, nothing ever goes 100% according to plan, so you do have to give yourself a little bit of grace, but you really do need to look at, if you took the time to plan it, why didn't it go the way you planned? Sometimes there are things in your control that you can improve upon. Sometimes, stuff happens. And then the second thing that I look at, besides logistics, is I look at sort of my reporting structure. Who are my constituents, and were they happy with what happened? So if I have sponsors, are sponsors happy? If I look at whether my event fits the overall mission of the Recording Academy, are they happy? Did I come in under my budget, and is my CFO happy, and do I have a job?
And one thing I always like to do is, if I have the opportunity, is to go in the audience and sit and experience and hear what people are saying and see their reactions and see if people are leaving early or if they're staying till the end, if they're looking for more. You always want to leave your audience wanting more, and that's what's great is when you can sit there and people are there, oh, it's over, oh man, that sucks. Or when they're walking out, there's something worse because you're like, oh man, this sucks, I failed. And also recaps, as dreadful as they are, but bring everybody together, whether it's on the telephone or in a room, and just recapping everything to see if those plans that you made did happen right. Because there's some things that you don't see, that you don't know if they happened or not. So you need people to tell you, that, you know, what happened 7 blocks away, were you at a street closure? If it actually got closed on time, was there a traffic jam there? Or did it all happen, you know, smoothly and seamlessly?
Did you feel prepared for your jobs? I know you were at CSUN, like when you graduated, were you like, this is what I want to do, I'm so prepared, or did you find yourself like kind of being like, I should go back to school, I should take a class? Like you mentioned contracts, did you
Right.
really know what was all the contract?
I didn't know what I wanted to do. I started as a business major here, and I was looking through the CSUN catalog. I wasn't happy in business. I was like, what do I want to do? And nothing was really catching my eye. And I said, oh, I like radio, I like television, I like film. Well, let me give that a shot. So I started going down that path, and I actually enjoyed it. I learned a lot about television and how ratings happen, and management and production timelines, and a lot of technical things. And my senior year, I saw an opening for an internship at the Recording Academy, helping produce some live events for a local chapter. So I figured I could probably figure this out. I know something about production, I know something about budgets. So I applied for it, had an interview, got the internship, and it was really all hands-on from there. I was so intimidated by a contract when it first got handed to me. I was like, I don't know, is this right? And they're like, one of our former executives at the academy would just throw things at me. And I was like, I don't know if this is right. I don't know what's negotiable, what's not. And I would be like, oh yeah, this is fine. And then it would be all marked up, and I'd go back with my head down and have to look at it again. But I mean, that's how you learn. And ask questions to, you know, hire people above you, and look online. There's plenty of research tools you can do. You guys have plenty of resources here.
Get out of school, myself included, I had a lot of eagerness, and I had a lot of willingness to learn. What I did not have was a professional skill set. I didn't write very well. I didn't speak very well publicly. I didn't negotiate very well. And these are things that will carry you for the rest of your life, especially in a business full of people who would love nothing more than to take advantage of you for the benefit of their company. So the idea that you need to be able to communicate effectively, you need to be able to know the ground you're standing on and stand up for that ground, and to know, you know, how to communicate your ideas and your points effectively. And that goes to budgeting as well. You need to know where you stand in preparing a budget, and it shouldn't scare you when somebody pushes back, or when you have to push back on somebody else to make that a reality.
And out of that, building relationships and, you know, getting to know one another, not necessarily for the future, but just to get to know one another, to know that skill set of how to meet somebody, how to take that relationship or that partnership to another level.
How to treat them like an equal.
Yeah.
Just definitely. A lot of people talk down to me just because they say, like, know who I am? I'm like, no, but I know what you are. But I always have to tread lightly, and I always have to, you know, keep my composure and just act professional, and just, you know, realize that they might not be somebody now, but they might be somebody later. All you guys, obviously, you're in the industry because you want to be someplace at some point. Well, look to your left or to your right. You know, eventually you might be working with these people in the future. So just always be personable, you know, easy to work with. That's my advice.